experience. Welcome to Argentina, at least virtually in this time of the history that we are going through. So I'll be more than welcome and more than ready to take you through different Argentinian regions. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes for people to join. And as we wait for people to join this experience and this webinar, I want to ask you, I want to get to know from which part of the world you're joining the webinar from. If you want to write in the chat where you're attending from, I'll be more than happy to know. I'm in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. Good, from New York, from London, from Israel. Nice, excellent. From Greece, nice. Paris, good. Switzerland, so we have a good mix. And have you ever been to Argentina? Buenos Aires, Canada, good. From Chile, excellent. From Istanbul, I have great memories from Istanbul. I had the chance to go to Turkey twice, so I love Istanbul and I love the Turkish tea. Nice. Madrid, and you had the chance to come here. From Buenos Aires as well, from Switzerland. You have been to Buenos Aires and Ushuaia, the end of the world. We will talk about that very soon. Never, but cannot wait till after COVID. Well, you know, this situation will pass and we will be able to travel again. So while we cannot travel, we will travel virtually, you know, because there are many different ways to travel the world, many different ways to get to know different regions of the world. And one is through these experiences. So, well, I'm very happy to welcome all of you here. I'm very happy that you got interested in learning what Argentina has to offer. So, well, bienvenidos, that's welcome in Spanish. As you know, my name is Daniela. I'm a tour guide from Buenos Aires, Argentina, as I mentioned. And today I will propose you to travel to different regions of Argentina. So we will learn about the geography of the country, we will learn about the culture of the country, and we will also learn about the diversity that Argentina has. And apart from that, we will learn about things that make Argentina or different Argentinian regions unique. For example, while I was waiting for the webinar to start, I was drinking some mate. Have you ever tried mate? And as we wait for people to join. Mate is a kind of green tea. Yes, very bitter. Yes, well, it's an acquired taste. It's very bitter, but it's part of our culture, it's part of our traditions. So if you ever come to Argentina, make sure that you try mate and you take some like mate and herbs back home with you. Very, very bitter. From Athens to Ushuaia, nice. Buenos Aires and more. From Buenos Aires, but living in Paris. Well, a few things I want to mention before we start with the presentation. Of course, if you have any question, feel free to ask me anything. Okay, you can ask me like every question that you may have, but please, for that, do not use the chat. Of course, you can use the chat to tell me anything you want, but please use the Q&A section in case you have any questions. So I will later, when I finish the presentation, I will go to the Q&A section and I will answer everything. Okay, good. So let's start the session, okay? So first of all, I want to welcome everyone in case you got here a few minutes late. I want to welcome everyone to Argentina. And first of all, we need to understand what Argentina is. You know, in the south part of South America, I know that most of you know, but it's always good to refresh this so we can locate Argentina in the world. So you can see that in the map on the screen right now. Argentina has borders with Uruguay to the east, Brazil, Paraguay, Bolivia, and then to the north, and then Chile all along the west. So we have people from Chile joining the experience. So yes, very, very near Argentina. And also, normally to start talking about something that you may not know, because I know that not everyone, not all of you had the chance to visit Argentina. I hope you will in the future, in the near future, when traveling is possible again. But we have to understand with something that you may know. And normally when we start a trip and we start planning a trip to Argentina, we have to understand that Argentina is a big country, okay? Argentina is the 8th largest country of the world. So a little bit smaller than India. If you had the chance to go to India, it's a little bit smaller. So there you can see the map of Argentina. with the map of the US. The US is the fourth largest country of the world, right? So you can see that's the real proportions, okay? So you can see the proportion, and that's the first thing that you need to take into consideration when planning a trip to Argentina. And also I have another map so you can get to know, Argentinian map is in blue, it's upside down. The north is actually like at the bottom of this map, and you have the north part of Africa and some parts of Western Europe. So I guess, well, many of you are joining from Europe, and many of you had the chance to travel to Europe, and you know that you can travel from one country to other very easily and very quick. In Argentina, you drive for hours and hours and hours, and you're still even in the same region, okay? So that's something that we normally take into consideration when planning a trip. And before we focus on the Argentinian regions, I want to ask you one more question that you can answer in the chat. Which is the first word that comes to your mind when I mention Argentina? What comes to your mind? I already mentioned mate, but the first thing that comes to your mind, you can write in the chat so I can know what ideas you have. Tango, good. Tango, 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 tango. So tango is one of our national dances, but I will talk later about it. Meat and red wine. Well, I have some red wine here with me. Okay, red wine, it's very famous, it's very popular, it's very important in Argentina. And later I will tell you something about the wine and the wine region. Good films, yes, we have very good film industry. So, well, I'm very glad that you recognize and you relate Argentina with good films, and then other people relate Argentina with the Pope, Pope Francis, with Messi, with Maradona, with football, gauchos, the South American cowboys, friendly people, nice. I'm very happy to read that. So, Evita, good, yes, Eva Perón, Evita, is normally how people recognize Argentina overseas. Good, so excellent. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And, if you're ready, fasten your seatbelts because we will start our trip to different Argentinian regions. I hope you have something to drink there. You have a glass of wine, you have a mate, why not? You have, I don't know, a tea, something to eat, like to drink, so you enjoy this webinar drinking something with me. We will start the trip to Argentina and visiting different regions. So we are starting in the northeast of the countries. I will highlight each region that we visit. And in this case, we go to the northeast of the country, okay, in the border with Brazil and Paraguay, as I mentioned earlier. And this part of the country is very famous for what you can see on the screen right now, which are Iguazu Falls. I don't know if any of you got the chance to visit Iguazu Falls, but that's one of the most visited parts of Argentina. It's really amazing. So I want to share a short video with you, and then I will tell you much more things about this region. So let's play the video. Okay, so now you have an idea of why Iguazu Falls is one of the most visited parts of Argentina. It's one of the natural wonders of the world. It's very authentic, it's very unique. And that national park, Iguazu National Park, is shared between Argentina and Brazil. And when people are planning to come to this part of the world, they ask me, oh, Daniela, or they ask us, from which side should I visit Iguazu Falls? From the Argentinian side or from the Brazilian side? Because of course you can visit the falls from either side. To be honest with you, I cannot tell that one side is better than the other one. They are different, but both of them are unique. From the Argentinian side, you get really, really, really close to the falls that you get wet. So it's spectacular. But from the Brazilian side, you get the panoramic view. So both sides are equally impressive, okay? And that region, that part of the country is where the mate tea comes from. Actually, it's a very old drink. Sometimes people ask me, oh, is it like something trendy in Argentina? Well, no, it's very traditional. It's not a trend that became popular and people started drinking mate. It's very traditional, come from the Guaraníes, from the native people from that region of the country. And, you know, it has a lot of health benefits, like every green tea. It's a natural stimulant, it's diuretic, it's antioxidant. So we drink mate the whole day. And to me, it's like a word game because mate is written like mate, M-A-T-E. So mate is our mate. We drink mate the whole morning and the whole afternoon. Not at night, not in the evening normally. Some people may drink, but not in the evening. But, you know, the thing is that it's our mate because, you know, we always are like drinking mate. And also, it's a natural stimulant, so it keeps you awake. Okay, so it's an energy boost. It's a natural energy boost. Okay, so there we go. If we go to the northwest of the country, Jujuy, Salta, that's closer to the stereotype that people have about South America. So let's share some pictures with you. You have the salt lakes, you have colorful mountains, you have very authentic little towns, and very, very, very good food as well. So that's something that also happens when we welcome here people in Argentina. And they say, well, I love Buenos Aires, but it's not what I was expecting to find here in Argentina. And well, Buenos Aires has a very big European influence that you don't see in this part of the country. So traditional music, that kind of landscape with the cactus, with different vegetation is much drier, it's very dry, much drier than like many other parts of the country. And it's mainly off the beaten track. So it really depends if you want to visit the most visited parts of the country, or if you want to go off the beaten path. If you like traveling off the beaten path, you know, it's really nice to go to the NOA. That's how we call this region, Noroeste Argentina, yeah, the northwest part of the country. So you won't meet a lot of foreigners, and that will be a really, really authentic experience. But it really depends on how you like traveling, okay? And this area, especially Salta province in this part of the country, is famous for the wine. You know that Argentina is very famous for the wine production here in the country. So it really depends how, what kind of wine you like. Salta is famous for Torrontés, and I know it's not that popular in many parts of the world. Torrontés is a wine varietal, a white varietal, and that's mainly, not only, but mainly produced in Salta province, in this part of the country. And also, we produce a lot of Malbec. Malbec is our main varietal. I will talk about Malbec very soon after we get to the other part of the country. We get to Cuyo region. I will explain you much more things about Malbec. But you know, Salta province in this region has the Guinness World Records about the highest Malbec plantation of the world. Right? So I'll focus on more information about the Malbec a little bit later on this experience, but it's a very unique region of the country to visit, and the landscape that you will see are really, really authentic. So I recommend you, if you get the chance to go, because the landscapes are amazing and you won't see this in other parts of the country. Okay, so that's the salt lakes I was mentioning earlier. There we go. And the colorful mountains. I don't know if you got the chance to go to Peru, right? If you had the chance to travel in South America. In Peru, many people, when heading to Machu Picchu from Cusco, they visit the Rainbow Mountains. And many people don't know that in Argentina, we have these mountains that are very similar. Actually, it's from the same mountain range that goes all the way to Peru. It's called Hornocal. That's a landscape. It doesn't have any filter, you know, so that's something, an activity that I recommend you to do while in the northwest part of the country. Okay. And I'm just reading the chat here while we do this. It's like from the Argentina side, you have a panoramic view. From Brazilian side, you get wet. Well, as well, but mainly you get more wet from the Argentina side and you get like more panoramic view from the Brazilian side. Of course, it's a national park and the views are different. You know, of course, you get wet also in the Brazilian side and you get the panoramic view from the Argentina side, but mainly that's the main difference between like both parts, okay? Okay, remember that if you have any question, to use the Q&A section here in Zoom. Okay, so something that characterizes the northwest part of the country, apart from the torrontés, is empanadas. And actually, I have some empanadas here I prepared just before the webinar, so I could share with you. I wish I could send them to you, you know, to all to your houses. So empanadas are very traditional, not only from Argentina, from South America. That has to do with the Spanish. You know, when the Spanish came here in 1536 for the first time in this part of the world, they brought many things, they brought many traditions, and some of them are traditions that we keep up to date. One of these traditions was that they brought the empanadas, okay? Empanadas. So I'm sure that you got the chance to try empanadas in most of the countries that you mentioned that you were joining the webinar from, because empanadas are found worldwide. But if you come to Argentina, that's something that you will definitely get to try. Of course, as every delicious, yes, you know, as every traditional food, it really depends the region where you go, how they prepare that. So I have to say, and I'm not from there, as I mentioned, I'm from Buenos Aires. I was born and raised in Buenos Aires. So, you know, the best empanadas of Argentina, in my opinion, are found in Salta province, in the northwest part of the country. And it has like one of the best food varieties of the whole country. Okay, so what are they filled with? Meat? It depends. You know, the most traditional one is with ground beef or minced meat. Yes. Onion, is like red bell pepper, eggs, in some cases potatoes as well. So it really depends on the region. But also we have the ham and cheese empanadas, we have cheese and onion, we have the vegetarian empanadas. So it really depends on the region. But if there is only one option, that's mainly with ground beef. Yes. I'm just reading that. Just 1 minute. Then if you have any question, like please, I wanted to read that, but that's very long at this point. So I will read it later when you get to the Q&A sections, okay? Good. So I mentioned that the northwest part of the country was famous for the Torrontés wine, but also I mentioned about these Guinness World Records about the Malbec in high altitude. When we talk about Malbec, we mainly talk about Cuyo region. And you know, Cuyo region is written as C-U-Y-O, but in Argentinian Spanish, we pronounce the Y or the double L like sh, so Cuyo. Cuyo region is one of the most visited parts of the country as well because of the wine production. That's the wine region. And as I mentioned earlier, I have my glass of wine here. I have a glass of Malbec. And you know, probably if you go to the supermarket in any of the countries or the city that you mentioned, you will find Argentinian wines for sure. And if you find Argentinian wines, 90% of the chances are that that will be a Malbec varietal. That's Alamos. That's one of my favorite Malbec wines from Mendoza province. So if you like wine, Cuyo region is one of the regions I recommend you to visit. Of course, it's very difficult to cover everything. Okay, so it will be very difficult, but according to what you like and knowing what each region has to offer from this experience, you know how to plan your trip to Argentina. So if you like wine, definitely you should go to Mendoza province. Even though the Cuyo region is a wine region as a whole, Mendoza is the province where most of the vineyards and wineries are located. Even if you don't like wine, you will enjoy this region because of the views. You know, of course, if you enjoy wine, you will enjoy double because you will enjoy the views and the wine. But Mendoza and this region in general is by the Andes mountain range. So the setting of each winery is really, really stunning. So there are over 1,000 wineries only in Mendoza. So it's very hard to choose which one to visit, but I recommend you to go to industrial ones and also to visit boutique wineries because you get to see the wine production from a different perspective. We have wineries that produces 20,000 liters per year and other ones that produces only 2,000 or 1,000 bottles per year. And that's enough for them. They don't want to produce anymore. And they prefer to have better quality than quantity, okay? So in most cases, you get to find wines that you cannot even find here in Buenos Aires. So because the production is so small. So Mendoza province, definitely, if you're a wine lover, that's a place I recommend you to visit as well. And you know, 70% of the Malbec production of the world, not Argentina, of the whole world, is produced in Argentina. So you can understand how important Malbec is for Argentina, for the economy, and also for the country, right? So Malbec is our main varietal. I think it's a matter of time, and probably in 10 years from now, Torrontés will become very popular as well. Torrontés, as I mentioned earlier, is a white varietal. Malbec is a red one. If you have never tried Malbec, I recommend you to try next time you go to the liquor store or to the supermarket to get an Argentine Malbec to enjoy with some empanadas that you make at home, okay? If anyone is drinking a Malbec at this time of the experience, please let me know in the chat. I'll be more than happy to know that you're enjoying some Malbec, especially if it's Argentine Malbec, okay? Good. And remember, if you have any questions, to leave them in the Q&A section. So, Mendoza. As I mentioned, Mendoza is the main province of Cuyo, and that's on the way to Chile. I had people from Chile joining this experience. So if we could, at this point, if we could cross the border and head to Chile, we will go through this landscape, okay? This is Las Cuevas, next to the Chilean border by the Andes mountain range. You know that the Andes are the mountain. Actually, I have a map all along here. So you see the map in brown here. Oh, that's the Andes mountain range. That's the natural border that divides Argentina from Chile. And also, you know, that's also on the way to Chile. We call it Alta Montaña, the high mountain circuit, that we get to see a lot of different places in Mendoza, and the landscape that one more beautiful than the other one, okay? And also, I don't know if you like hiking. You can write me in the chat if you like hiking or not. If you like hiking, we have the Aconcagua Peak. That's the highest mountain range out of the Himalayas mountain range. I don't know if you had the chance to go to the Himalayas, to visit the Himalayas in Nepal, in India, in Tibet. You know, here in Argentina, the Aconcagua is almost 7,000 meters high. So if you like hiking, we have different trails, okay? It's not necessary to conquer the peak. Of course, if you want, feel free. Of course, you need to get the permits and be ready for that. You love hiking, have been in El Chaltén. I'll talk about El Chaltén very soon when we get to Patagonia. And in Mendoza and in Cuyo region, we have a lot of different hiking trails as well. So if you're a nature lover, you will love coming to Argentina, okay? Nice, I'm very glad to know that you like hiking. But then, you know, what I really admire of Argentinian landscapes is the diversity that we can find even in the same region. Of course, within regions, they are very different from each other. So far we have seen 3 different regions, right? The Northeast, Northwest, and the west part of the country. And the 3 regions are very different to each other. But also, we can go from Mendoza, very near in San Juan province, that's the next province, you know, the neighbor province. We get to see something like this, you know, a desert landscape. That's Ixigualasto. It's an archaeological site, and it's completely off the beaten track. It's mainly for Argentinian tourists that go there. So foreign tourists still don't know about this place. So that's an excellent opportunity to discover an off the beaten track part of Argentina. And you can go either from San Juan, or you can even go from Mendoza, because if you're visiting the wineries, you can go to Ixigualasto from Mendoza as well, okay? And then we have our version of Colorado Canyon. I don't know if any of you got the chance to visit Colorado Canyon. This is in San Luis, another province of Cuyo, of this same region. And, you know, that's also off the beaten track. So in this experience, I wanted to bring you, of course, the most visited destination, like Patagonia, that I will focus on Patagonia very soon, Mendoza, Iguazu, Buenos Aires, of course, but also about, you know, off the beaten path places that, you know, it's hard to know. So that's why I wanted to bring you some ideas, and I hope you can visit Argentina after this situation is over, okay? And then we keep traveling Argentina, and we are heading to the south part of the country. We are heading to Patagonia, okay? Patagonia, as you can see, is almost half of the country. And it's another, like one of the most visited regions of the country, together with Mendoza and with Iguazu Falls, mainly for the nature and for the landscapes. So I have a short video to share with you, and then I will explain everything about Patagonia. And while we see this, if you want to write me in the chat that you visited Patagonia or you want to visit, please let me know in the chat. There we go. Okay, good. So you want to visit one day, and Joanna, you have been here in Patagonia. So, of course, that whenever we mention Patagonia, the first thing is that people know the word is much more than a brand, you know, like an outdoor clothing brand. So, and then when people go to Patagonia, I say, well, that makes sense because I know what Patagonia cloth is for. You visited Bariloche. Well, Bariloche is the main city of Patagonia. It's unique by Nahuel Huapi Lake. It's beautiful, and you want to visit. Excellent. You know, and it's a region that if you visit it once, twice, 3 times, it's never enough. It's never enough time to go to Patagonia, and we always need to leave a reason to go back. And I had another person, well, Gemma, and also another person, another participant told in the chat that they had the chance to come here and they visited El Chaltén with the Fitzroy Peak that you can see on the picture. So that's one of the most visited places in Patagonia. And then I will show you the other reason why people go to Patagonia. But if you love hiking, and some of you told me that you do, Patagonia is the place to visit in Argentina. On the video, we saw some mountain huts. That's something that we need to take into consideration because so many people don't know that we have the mountain huts here, and they miss the chance to do a hike that's longer than 1 day. You know, in Patagonia and also from Bariloche, you have the chance to go to do a lot of hikes that are multi-day treks. So you get the chance to sleep in those mountain huts, which is really nice because you don't need to bring your tent. It's better to bring your own sleeping bag, but you don't need to bring your tent. So that's very nice. And some people miss the chance because they don't have this information. So remember that we have a lot of mountain huts waiting for you in Patagonia. And also, the main reason why people go to Patagonia is for this one, Perito Moreno Glacier. If you had the chance to visit, you can let me know in the chat. You know, you can see that in many, many pictures. You can see that in many videos, but nothing compares like being there. Why? It's over 30 kilometers long, so it's a huge glacier, and it has a particularity that is not retreating, as most glaciers in the world are because of global warming. So that's why most people go there. It's advancing. It's the most visited national park in the country, together with Iguazu National Park. And it's not the only glacier that we have, and that's something I really want to stress about because many people think it's the only one we have in the region, but we have many other ones. And actually, if you go to El Calafate, that's the city where you can visit the glaciers, 1 day, 1 full day will be spent at Perito Moreno Glacier, but then I recommend you to stay at least 1 more day, 1 more full day, so you can visit the other glaciers in the region, okay? So that's something that when you're planning your trip, you have to take into consideration. And then, well, this is like mainly for hiking, as I mentioned earlier, and then, you know, normally, so far, we have been talking about places that are in the west part of Patagonia, all the way here. But if we go to the east, the landscape is completely different, and it's mainly for whale watching. Of course, the penguins as well. We have the Magellanic penguins there, also in Ushuaia, but also we have the southern right whale. You love whales, yes, you know, that's really nice. If you like whale watching, that's another thing that you can do in Patagonia. Of course, that's something also I want to share with you because, you know, Calafate, Bariloche, El Chaltén, even Ushuaia, the southernmost city on earth, they are very far away from each other. So sometimes you will, it depends on how long you can spend in Argentina, but you know, you have to choose which area to visit, which area to focus in. So normally when people ask me, how long should I stay in Patagonia? I say, well, if you can, at least 2 weeks, if you can. Of course, it really depends how long you're going to stay in Argentina as a whole, but at least 2 weeks will be to cover the basics of Patagonia and to enjoy, you know. And if you drive here in Argentina, you can get the chance to do a lot of road trips, but if there is one trip I want to share with you and I want to recommend, is to take the road number 40 that connects almost the whole country from south to north, 5,000 kilometers all along Patagonia, Cuyo region, the wine region, and the Northwest. So again, if you're gonna cover it all, you need at least a month and a half, but you can do a section. You can choose one section to do in Patagonia only or in another part of the country. So if you like driving and if you like taking road trips, take into consideration about hiring a car here in Argentina, and so you can do the self-driving trip as well. Okay, so if you have any question about Patagonia, please remember that you can use the Q&A section. If you join a little bit later, I want to repeat this so you know that you can leave everything in the Q&A section. And then we get to the last region of the country, which is the Pampas region. Have you ever heard of the Pampas? You can let me know in the chat, you know. And one person wrote me when I was asking, I don't know if all of you were here when we started, you know, when I started, I asked you, like, which is the first word that comes to your mind when I mentioned Argentina? And one of you said gauchos. Well, the gaucho, we normally refer to the gaucho as the South American cowboy, okay? Even though it's not exactly the same, there are a few differences that are like very important. For example, the cowboy was always chasing people that were against the law, and the gaucho originally was always against the law, against the authority. So that's the main difference. And then the cowboys will have guns to defend themselves, and the gaucho will find their way to defend themselves, but not with guns, with the facón, which is a special knife that now they still use not to defend themselves, but as a tool, okay? But you know, when we talk about the Pampas, we normally think of this, you know, the gauchos, the horses, the flatlands, okay? The word Pampas means flatlands. This is the fertile area of the country. You know, in Argentina, we depend on agriculture for our economy. We export different kind of grains, wheat, corn, like many different kind of grains, soya. And that region, the region where we grow all those grains, is the Pampas region. That's where I am right now. But I'm not in that landscape, I'm in Buenos Aires city. And that's something that gets people surprised, because normally when we think of the Pampas, we never think of Buenos Aires. We don't think of the city, right? We think of this kind of landscape. And you know, just a little bit of history, because we have to go back in time to really understand the importance of the Pampas. You know, between 1880 and 1930, Argentina was one of the wealthiest countries of the world because of agriculture. So even though we still depend on agriculture during those years, those were the golden years of Argentina history. So that was thanks to the Pampas. And Argentina, to give you an idea, was called the barn of the world because of all the grains that we used to export, okay? So if you come to Buenos Aires, you can visit the Pampas region, at least the one closest to Buenos Aires, San Antonio de Areco town, which is 113 kilometers from Buenos Aires as a day trip. So that's something, again, people don't know, and they miss the chance to visit a completely different lifestyle and to get to know other region because they think it's too far away. So you can go from Buenos Aires as a day trip to the estancias, that's how we call them, the ranches, okay? And I'm reading the chat, Pampas is very famous in Sweden. Okay, because of a famous song written by a Swede who visited the Pampas and tried to marry a beautiful lady, a daughter of a gaucho. Well, nice. I didn't know that the Pampas were very famous in Sweden. Thank you for sharing this story. Nice, but the song is great. Could you write the name of the song? I would love to check it out after we finish the webinar, and probably other people also get interested in listening to the song. So thank you, Jan. Nice. Well, when we talk about the Pampas and when we talk about the gauchos, we talk about the Argentine barbecue as well. Okay, so some of you told me, well, the meat in Argentina is so important. Is the meat and also how the cattle are, how the cattle is raised in the pampas, right, in the flatlands, so the cows don't develop the muscles, so the meat is very tender. But it's also the way it's cooked, right, very slowly. So that's one of the reasons why people want to come to Argentina, okay, to have a traditional asado. But as I mentioned, you know, the Pampas region is also where Buenos Aires city is. So when I was talking about the Northwest, I told you that Buenos Aires has a very strong European influence. So let me share this video with you, and then I will tell you why Buenos Aires is the most European city of South America, to the extent that it was called, and it is called, the Paris of South America, to give you an idea. So let's see the video. Okay, so there are two things that mainly get the attention of people when they travel to Buenos Aires. One is how European the city is. I will explain you why very soon. And the other one is how green Buenos Aires is. Buenos Aires is very green. We have a lot of trees and a lot of green areas, a lot of parks. But also, the other thing is that it's very, 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 very European. That has to do with the history as well. That has to do with what I was mentioning about like the golden years of Argentinian economy between 1880 and 1930. And you know, by 1910, we were celebrating the first 100 years of the Revolution of May, the first attempt to get the independence from Spain, that we finally got it in 1916. But it was a process between 1910 and 1916. So in 1910, the economy was going really well. So we had huge celebrations with people coming from all over the world to celebrate with us. And the country was getting ready, the city was getting ready for the event. So most of the buildings that you see now in Buenos Aires that will get your attention were built during those years, just before 1910. And model to follow was Paris, you know, that's why the city was inspired in Paris. And many of the architects that designed those buildings were French architects as well. Not only for the government buildings, but also for residencies. And that's something that gets the attention of many people because they can understand that of the government buildings being like, you know, with the French influence, with that kind of architecture. But then private residencies were huge mansions in French style, French architecture with the French architects. And you know, these people, the ruling elite of Buenos Aires from those years, used to spend summer here, and then they used to spend summer in Paris, you know, the opposite seasons, opposite hemisphere. So each year that they came back here, they came not only with new ideas, but also with the French architects to design their mansions here. Okay, so that's why when you walk in Buenos Aires, especially in Recoleta neighborhood, you see a lot of this French influence. And what you can see on the screen right now, that's the pink house. That's the government house, you know, the Casa de Gobierno, the government house. And that's the main square of Buenos Aires, Plaza de Mayo, May Square. May because of this Revolution of May I was mentioning earlier. And also it's the main square, right, where the city was founded and where every historical event happened since the very beginning of our history till today. So if you ever come to Buenos Aires, you will definitely visit Plaza de Mayo. And thank you very much, Jan, for sharing the name of the song. Excellent. I will check that out later after we finish this session. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias. But, you know, even though Buenos Aires is very European, if you head to the south part of the city, that's very South American, and that also has to do with the history. You know, there's always an explanation behind each building in Buenos Aires. When you head to La Boca neighborhood, that for sure you will go because it's where Caminito is, where this picture was taken, where these colorful houses can be found. In La Boca, you know, you have a lot of what we call conventillo, the tenement houses painted in different colors. And that has to do with the history, with immigration. And that's why we have a lot of European background nowadays, because it has to do with these golden years as well. The economy was going really well, but Argentina needed more people to work here. So we had a call for immigration. Many people came from different parts of the world, but mainly from Italy and from Spain because of the language, right? So they settled here and they started, living in these houses because the city was not ready to welcome all of them, and they had to manage to build their houses with whatever they could find. So corrugated tin from the container from the harbor, the timber from the factories, and the paint that was left over from the ships. It was very good quality, very resistant, but it was not enough to paint the whole house in the same colors. So they just painted that in different colors. And now we keep that as a tradition of those years, okay? So La Boca is the neighborhood of Boca Juniors, as Chan mentioned. Chan, are you a Boca Juniors fan? Football, soccer, if you're from the US, it's very, very, very important here in the country. It's like a religion here, so people get crazy for football. And Boca is home of Boca Juniors Stadium. That's more messy. Well, more messy, good. So, Messi, Maradona, Tevez. So normally people recognize Argentinian football with Boca Juniors and River Plate. That's the derby we have here, and that's very near Caminito Street that you can see on the screen. And also, La Boca is where tango started, and many of you mentioned that you recognize and you relate Argentina to tango. Tango is one of our national dance, and I want to take to make this difference. It's not the only national dance that we have here in the country. We have over 70 different national dances here. Depending on the region that we go, tango is from Buenos Aires. We call it, it's shared between Buenos Aires and Uruguay as well. We call it Cultura Rioplatense, the culture from the river, Rio de la Plata here that we have. The river is the border between Argentina and Uruguay. So we share that with Uruguay. So if you go to Uruguay, you may find tango there as well because of our history. So tango originated in the south in La Boca neighborhood. And it has to do with immigration. Everything has to do with everything, Immigrants came here and there was a problem. First of all, they didn't have much money. So they were living all together, 10 people in one room, all together. So life happened on the streets. But then there was a problem. They came from different countries, so they couldn't communicate because they didn't have a common language that they could speak. So the common language was the music. And that was the origin of tango, circa 1880, right? Around 1880, in a very, very, very informal way. But tango got popular at the beginning of the 20th century, okay? And tango is a way of expression. That's why when you hear the first tangos, the tangos of Carlos Gardel, for example, it's a bit nostalgic, it's very, very melancholic. And if you listen to tango from Astor Piazzolla, for example, which is the late 20th century, it's much different. This electronic tango, you may have heard Liber Tango, for example, of Piazzolla, that's completely different to the tango of Carlos Gardel. But what we have to understand that tango is very, very, very alive here in Buenos Aires, that we have the milongas. As you can see, that was a tango festival, the one that you can see now on the screen. But the milonga is a tango discotheque where we normally go and dance. People just want to go and dance tango. So we have a lot of milongas. And if you want to experience real tango, not a tango show, you can go to these kind of milongas to see how people dance and to join as well. That's the idea, that you learn the basic steps and you can join to dance some tango, okay? And now, whenever we think of tango, we think of a couple, a man and a woman dancing together. At the very beginning, tango was danced only between men, even though it may sound very surprising to you at this point. But at the very beginning, there were very little women in Argentina because most of the immigrants were men. So they started dancing among themselves, okay? Good. I want to share the last video about La Boca, and then I will tell you something else, and then we will go to the Q&A section. So if you have any question, remember to leave it in the Q&A section, and I will answer them very shortly. an idea of like a bit more what La Boca has to offer, that was a little bit of La Boca different parts, the football, the barbecue, some tango music also as a background. And then, you know, something that characterized Buenos Aires is that each neighborhood is very different from the other. As in Argentina in general, each region is very different from the other one. Well, in Buenos Aires, each neighborhood is very different. And we have the newest part of the city by the river, which is Puerto Madero neighborhood. Puerto Madero was the second harbor of the city. And now it's the newest part of the city. That's landfill, so that's why it's the newest part of the city. And that's only 10 minutes drive from La Boca. And then 10 minutes drive to Recoleta with the French mansions. So you see, that's something that you really can appreciate in Buenos Aires, this contrast between the neighborhoods. Okay. And then before we go to the Q&A section, you know, I was mentioning that we have different authentic things of each region. You have the wine, you have the empanadas, we have the mate. So if you want to learn more about these experiences, if you want to learn more about these things, these icons of Argentina, you can join us, you can write us, you have all our contact details there, okay? And you can join the virtual experiences as well. We'll be more than happy to share everything with you about Malbec, about empanadas, Argentine cocktails, and much, much, much more, okay? And if I will answer, of course, all the questions at this point very soon, but if there is any question that you want to ask us, or you want to, you know, you want to ask something that you don't want to ask here in this session, please, you can write us. You have our website there and the services that we offer. And also feel free to reach me here in A Small World. You can write me in private as well there, and I'll be more than happy to answer all the questions there as well. Okay, let me just stop sharing the screen so we can get to the Q&A section, okay? Let me just find it here. Okay. So, Jan, the Malbec is fantastic with Argentinian mint too. Well, the Malbec pairs very well with red meat. Okay, so that's something that you tried, Gato Negro. Okay, good. How many people live in Buenos Aires? Good. So I want to tell you first about like Argentina in general. We are 44 million people. So to be the 8th largest country of the world, that population is not that much, only 44 million people. In Buenos Aires, it really depends, because if you only consider Buenos Aires city, the autonomous region, the capital of the country, we are 3 million people, roughly 3 million. But if we consider the metropolitan area as well, we have to add 10 more million. So 30 million altogether with Buenos Aires city and the metropolitan area as well. Okay. And then, well, if you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the Q&A section, and let me just read this one. We were in Cafayate and saw what we think were children's birthdays being celebrated by school bus and car processions with the Dígame Señor written on the side. Will you please explain this tradition? Well, you know, Dígame Señor, it's normally from what I understand, what you wrote, Prashant, is like, I think that someone just graduated from university, that this person became a teacher. And that's why, like, call me teacher. That's what Dígame Señor means. Actually, Señor with the ñ that we have only in Spanish. So like, call me Señor. From what I can read there and what I understand from what you mentioned is like, it was a graduating, like someone just graduated and they were celebrating that. Okay, so do you have any other question, anything that you want to know about, that you want to ask me before we end the session? Oh, Mariano, Núñez is one of the most beautiful neighborhoods and has the best soccer team, River Plate. So Mariano, I guess you're from Argentina and you're a big River Plate fan. So yes, River Plate is in the other end of the city. If you're heading, for example, if you're heading to the Pampas, to San Antonio de Areco, you will see that just like from the highway as well. So, well, nice. The best time to visit, very good question. I wanted to explain that as well. You know, to me, the best time to visit a country is when you can, okay? Starting from that. But of course, if we can choose, we will choose a very good moment of the year to visit different regions. Here in Argentina, as the country is very long, as I mentioned, it's different if you visit Patagonia, if you visit the north, if you visit Iguazu. So it really depends what you want to do. If you want to do hiking in Patagonia, for example, we have to avoid our winter. Okay, so our coldest months are July and August. Okay, so the best month for the whole country as a whole are either October and November, and then March and April. That's when you get the best weather. Okay, it's not so hot, it's summer or autumn or fall. So then it really depends. In Buenos Aires, you can visit year round, right? In winter, it gets cold here. It gets cold in Buenos Aires, but we don't get snow. Of course, we get snow in many other parts of Argentina, all along the west, in the northwest, in Mendoza, in Cuyo region, and of course in Patagonia. But for example, if you want to go skiing, if many people come from Brazil to go skiing, either in Cuyo or in Patagonia. So it really depends what you want to do. But as I mentioned, as a whole, it's better to try October, November, or March or April. Okay, and also Patagonia is the gateway to go to Antarctica. So that's why only in summer, between November and February, are when most of the cruise ships depart Ushuaia, the southernmost city on earth, to get to Antarctica. So that's another thing that if you plan to combine Argentina with Antarctica, you have to take into consideration on when to come. Okay. So, do you have any, well, the wine region, Joanna, you have it there, and I'm seeing the chat as well. The wine region, it really depends. Normally, we have a wine festival. We call it Festival de la Vendimia. You know, it's the wine, the harvesting time. The grapes for wine are harvested in late summer. So if you go there in March, you know, that's the best time to go. Late February, beginning of March. That's excellent. So that will be my recommendation, late February. January, it gets very, very cold in the wine region. And in winter, it gets very cold. So July, August, you can go, but it's very cold in Cuyo region, especially if you go to the high mountain circuit. You can visit, the wineries are open, but you know, it will be very cold. So the best time is late February and the beginning of March, especially because you get to go to this wine festival. When we talk about the best moments to visit the place, for example, if you want to go to Mendoza for the Vendimia, you know, this wine harvesting time, wine harvesting festival, of course it's the best time to go, but many people will be there as well. So, you know, you have to balance what you want to, what you want to choose. If you want to go there on your own, well, you should avoid that time of the year, but also it's nice because you get to see the harvest. So it's nice. Lena, is it safe to travel around? What about to fly from north to south? Is it possible or smart way to do? Well, yes. Of course, now everything changed because of the quarantine and lockdown, but in a normal situation, yes, there are flight connections to go from Iguazu to Salta, and then, you know, in Patagonia, you have a lot of flight connections as well, without having to come to Buenos Aires. You can fly from Bariloche to Calafate, Calafate to Ushuaia, so that's convenient. It's the way to do it, because if you want to go by bus, for example, even though within Patagonia, distances are very long. So it's nice, it's better to fly. And then, well, from Buenos Aires, you can connect to like all the regions of the country, but you don't have to come, as it used to happen in the past, that you had to come to Buenos Aires to go to any other part of the country. Now it's not necessary anymore, okay? And then, is it safe to travel around? I really want to answer this question before we finish, because, you know, many people, whenever they think of South America, not only about Argentina, but mainly about South America in general, they are scared. They say, well, I don't know if I should go to South America. Only by mentioning South America, they get scared. And, you know, it's not as dangerous as many people may think it is. Of course, things happen in Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is a very big city. As every big city of the world, you have to be careful and you have to know where not to go. So you can ask a tour guide, you can ask us, you can ask a local, and they will recommend you. But it's not that you cannot travel. I really want to stress on this, because many people get really scared, and it's a city that you can move around, that we can enjoy, we can go out at night. So it's okay. You have to take some considerations. Like, as in every big city, you know, don't don't have any jewelry with you on the streets. Don't get any unwanted attention. I think that will be my recommendation, okay? And of course, use common sense. Then in other parts of the country, it's much safer. Of course, when you go to Patagonia, when you go to Iguazu, it's much, much, much safer. It's totally fine. The only place that you really want to pay attention is Buenos Aires, but I don't want to scare you with this. I just want to tell you that it's totally fine to travel and you will enjoy a lot, okay? So please, it's okay to travel to Argentina, okay? Can we do motorcycle diets like Che Guevara? Yes, of course you can, Chan. If you want, of course, feel free. You will have a great experience, okay? So I think I answered all the questions. If you have any other question, this is the time. And if there are no more questions, I want to thank you a lot, everyone, for joining this experience. It was my pleasure to get a chance to share what Argentina has to offer. And I'm also very thankful because you chose to learn about Argentinian traditions. So I'm very grateful for that. I want to thank you for your interest in getting to know what Argentina has to offer. And I hope to welcome you here very soon after this situation is over, okay? And you spent a month last year in South America. Nice, Diana, excellent. So I want to thank you a lot. And remember, if you think of any other question that you said, oh, I should have asked Daniela about it, please don't worry, just you can write me here on, like on private on a small world, and I'll be more than happy to answer everything. So thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you have a wonderful week. And I hope to welcome all of you here in Argentina when traveling is possible again. Okay. So